So I'll just introduce myself first. My name is James Phare. I'm one of the founding partners of a London-based information management consultancy called Value Ltd.
My name is Hodson. I'm a director of X88 software, and the product that I'll be sharing a little bit, just only take through about 10 minutes, is Pandora. I've been in the data industry pretty much for 25 years, always on the supplier side.
Okay. First of all, always good to start with a disclaimer, just to clarify that any of the views expressed in the presentation are purely my own and not the organisation's referenced within. Okay, so to get into the presentation. I was asked today if I would speak by BCS and DAMA about some of my experiences of implementing data quality management tools, namely the drivers, the problem set, the challenges along the way, and finally, of course, the benefits of implementing these types of tools. In terms of my background, I've been working in the data space for around 10 years now, roughly a kind of 50-50 split, half the time on the business side of the equation and half the time on the technology side. Prior to setting up Data to Value, I was head of data architecture at Man Group PLC, and then later head of information management. For those that don't know Man, they're one of the biggest players in the hedge fund space globally, with around $54 billion of assets under management. It's a very diverse and entrepreneurial company with a varied information management landscape. Man operate one of the largest algorithmic trading engines globally, alongside one of the largest fund of hedge funds units and discretionary trading divisions. Within this diverse landscape, our strategy within information management was to predominantly leverage this entrepreneurial spirit and try and create a culture of responsible and effective information management. To promote this, we sought to adopt lean principles wherever possible and developed a predominantly federated approach, featuring a relatively small centralised team of data specialists. Our motivations for looking at data quality tools were that we experienced the usual data challenges around accessibility, definition, lineage, quality, duplication of effort, and so on. We'd delivered a great deal of data infrastructure over the years, including a single BI and reporting platform, in addition to an enterprise data warehouse. However, the insights and decision support provided by those didn't always meet expectations, mainly due to data quality issues. Anecdotally, we knew that we had data quality issues. However, measuring and quantifying these was something that we often found quite difficult. The hedge fund industry was beginning a period of convergence with traditional asset management businesses. Regulations such as UCITS and the AIFM directive in particular presented a new range of drivers for enhanced information management and improved data quality. Traditionally, in keeping with this entrepreneurial environment, we'd tried to support areas in developing their own tools for managing data quality. However, scale dictated that we now look at more robust and scalable tools. Cost and complexity reductions, however, were probably the largest driver for us looking at data quality tools. Traditionally, during typical interest rate environments, Man had performed exceptionally well in the high margin structured product space. Prior to the recession, the company was actually the most profitable company within the FTSE 100 index on a profitability per employee basis. However, as the global recession really hit, obviously the focus shifted more to costs rather than revenues, and so then it became more apparent that data quality was a much more compelling problem to try and solve within the firm. Thrown into the mix, we're also looking at acquiring a number of different other companies within the hedge fund space, with the obvious information management consequences of doing so. Okay. Further to internal motivations for looking at data quality tools, my interest was also captured looking at the impressive growth of the industry. Gartner estimated that back in 2007 the industry was just $300 million in size. However, by 2009 this had grown to 727 million, and finally was up to 950 million, they estimated, in 2011. Clearly this had to be driven by something more than just gimmicks, so I wanted to take a look in a bit more detail as to what was going on. At Man, we considered and trialled a range of different data quality tools. These range from the more technical profiling end of the spectrum to more the data governance and data management end. Some we were able to load data in relatively quickly, analyze it, measure it, and present the results. Others we found were quite slow, cumbersome, difficult to use, and relatively speaking, quite expensive. All of the tools, however, featured what I would call industrial strength data quality features, namely the ability to create tests, identify and recognize formats and patterns, match data, standardize it, parse it, dedupe it, and so on. Some were tailored to focus on particular requirements such as anti-money laundering and customer data integration. They all, however, appeared to be specialized rather than commodity tools for which there could potentially be quite a significant overhead to acquiring. So after a lot of due diligence, I didn't find many tools, to be honest, that I'd be happy to demo in front of a business representative, certainly not in front of senior management within the firm. Also during this process, a larger concern arose. I didn't put this in after Kenny's mention, by the way. So just to be clear, to start with, this isn't actually the information management team that we assembled at Man. I didn't often wear a Space Invaders t-shirt into the office. It is in fact the IT department as depicted in the hit comedy The It Crowd, which no doubt Kenny's also a fan of. Anyway, my point was that data management practitioners, most would probably agree that at the moment one of our core aims is to try and move responsibility for data out of IT and into the business, where it's ultimately better understood and the costs and the risks and the benefits of getting data management right are hopefully much clearer. I was concerned with introducing an advanced data quality tool within IT. One of the risks was that we might be introducing a moral hazard into the firm. I was worried that bringing a tool in might actually incentivize data owners, data stewards and other stakeholders to adopt a much more laissez-faire attitude towards information management. If IT now had the shiny tools, the know-how and, most importantly, the enthusiasm to resolve data quality problems, ultimately, why did the rest of the firm need to worry about actually looking at data quality as an issue that should be worked on? Then, thankfully, we came across X88's Pandora product. When we looked at Pandora, we really liked the product for a number of different reasons. Firstly, and perhaps most importantly, it was an extremely intuitive product to use for non-technical users. Really, it was the only product that I came across in the kind of data profiling, data quality tool space that personally I'd be quite happy to demo and work through problems interactively with business stakeholders and also present to senior management teams within the organisation. We found that the performance and flexibility of Pandora was also a real plus. Its architecture allows data to be loaded relatively quickly from a wide variety of data sources. This is then profiled upon loading and doesn't require any explicit schema definition. This is quite different to other tools that we came across, which were much more batch oriented and required a great deal more preparation of the data beforehand. Out of the box, Pandora also allows a number of standard measurement, quantification, analysis features for users to explore. However, there are also various options to build your own more detailed and complex business rules, analytics, and reports. Pandora enables the creation of data quality KPIs and metrics, which is also something I'll elaborate on further within the presentation. Ultimately, to summarise, really, it was the only tool that we came across which we felt dovetailed really well with our approach to information management, which was ultimately to try and be as lean and as iterative and as business focused as possible. The tool itself is very interactive, very agile, and also ultimately very forgiving to use. So, after performing well in the due diligence process, we decided to purchase Pandora at the start of 2012, and were immediately presented with the decision as to where we actually started to use this shiny new tool. In keeping with our lean principles, we tried to resist drafting an elaborate implementation plan because it was really an area that we'd never done much work in before. So we instead opted for a relatively light plan. In the previous year, we'd completed a project to identify the organisation's main master data sets, canonically start to model these and create a roadmap of requirements to raise the information management maturity levels and ultimately the data quality levels within each of those core data sets. So thankfully this seemed an obvious scope for where we should start using Pandora to assist raising the maturity level of information management across the organisation. We initially started by purchasing 3 licenses to be used centrally within my area, with the aim that once an initial framework for use had been drafted, we would train Pandora power users in other divisions within the company and ultimately distribute responsibility for managing the tools and managing the various data sets to those Pandora power users. So they'd be doing the monitoring, the analysis, and the reporting tasks for their respective business areas. Our eventual aim was to create a data quality management competency centre within the organisation that was able to provide more bandwidth to lead by example, assist strategic projects with their data requirements, and focus on some of the more highly technical data quality challenges that existed within the firm. However, amongst the ongoing budget cuts and headcount reductions, this was always going to be a difficult case to justify up front. First, however, we had to prove that the tool that we'd purchased and the lean approach that we were taking actually worked. So we decided to hitch our cart to a fairly ambitious pilot project within the product data domain. So that's investment funds for the company. At the end of 2011, in the technology department, we'd decided to appoint a third party to build a new corporate website for the firm. Our plan was to migrate all of the data and the functionality from our existing website onto a newer best-of-breed platform at the same time as implementing various enhancements. One of the desired enhancements was to significantly extend the data available to existing and potential investors, intermediaries and other financial institutions that frequented the site. The problem we had, however, was that whilst we theoretically had a single internal master for product data in-house, the reality was that the data had a number of problems with it, didn't have the best reputation, and also in reality we also had several other overlapping data sources that various business areas and users depended on. So, as part of an internal governance body, we agreed that this would be the requirement that ultimately necessitated the creation of a new internal master for product data. So I've just lost my step slightly. Prior to the pilot project, we'd spent a great deal of time achieving agreement on a new firm-wide product data model. Whilst I felt this was a widely agreed data model and the target schema for the new data store was solid, the devil is always in the detail, and Pandora ultimately proved a great way to empirically prove out whether we'd actually got the data model right or not. So we loaded and integrated product data from around 10 different sources into Pandora and began the process of investigation, discovery, measurement and improvement. Using various out-of-the-box techniques and constructing over 100 data quality rules and checks, using a team of 3 full-time employees, we were able to quickly establish a baseline and coordinate the implementation of over 6,000 data quality changes in 3 months. Once we were live with the new store, for the first time we were able to offer stakeholders complete transparency over what was going on within the data quality, what was going on for data quality within product data, both using data quality dimensions but also more in-depth measures and key performance indicators. We encountered various challenges along the route. Using Pandora, we were able to discover, document and prioritize issues relatively quickly, and also really delve into the root causes of those issues. Thus, we ended up actually finding a lot more issues than we'd anticipated. So one of the challenges was actually to be quite disciplined and try and resist actually delving into those issues further and raising them with different areas of the business to actually correct. Another issue we encountered was trying to successfully communicate progress to various senior stakeholders internally. We found that we were getting a lot of questions around or along the lines of, when will the project be finished? You know, is the data quality fixed? The usual kind of questions that we're all used to. Fortunately, we were able to use the metrics generated by Pandora in a very high-level scorecard, which proved very popular with internal stakeholders to kind of allay their fears that we were actually making progress and we weren't just a team of 3 sat in the basement with a shiny new tool. The final challenge came partly in the form of being victims of our own success, in that the tool proved so popular with various stakeholders around the company that they began to actually line up work for us to look at before we'd even completed the pilot project. Overall, once delivered, the project was considered a huge success. Gone were the days of comments such as product data will never be fixed. Feedback from clients about the website was also very positive. For the first time, they now had access to much more accurate product data, many more attributes, reports, and new functionality that they'd never had before, all from the same underlying data source. Internally, we were also able to significantly improve our decision-making and analytics capabilities. The higher quality of product data enabled a much finer grain of margin analysis to take place. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, however, given the phase of its life cycle that the company was going through, we were able to reduce the maintenance effort for product data by around 60%. So quite a compelling cost reduction. In terms of presenting the results, we decided to adopt a number of different ways. Firstly, on the left-hand side, we decided to use monthly scorecards and use fairly typical kind of data quality dimensions, such as those that we've touched on today. We opted to mainly use these for project sponsors and senior decision makers within the company. On the right-hand side, we've got the kind of KPIs and kind of daily metrics that we were generating for the actual data owners, the reference data teams, generally the practitioners that were actually amongst the grassroots to look at and use. These proved very popular, particularly for highly dependent stakeholders, such as those within sales, operations, investment management, and other areas of the firm. In terms of wider outcomes, one of the kind of major benefits of actually going through the process of bringing in the tool and the lean approach was we were able to quite significantly change people's attitudes towards data quality management within the firm. People were much more receptive to actually solving problems, and gone was the pessimistic attitude of the past. We're also able to create a data competency centre within the firm through actually delivering something that was relatively successful, rather than actually spending a great deal of time up front researching and building an elaborate business case that ultimately would have been extremely difficult to pull off given the financial environment. Also, in terms of human capital development, implementing Pandora was undoubtedly a very positive experience for the actual teams that were responsible for managing product data quality. Criticism of these areas subsided, and employees found the tool much more interesting to actually use on a day-to-day basis than the traditional tools that they were used to, such as Excel and reporting tools and so on. A personal highlight for me in this space was being able to help a recent graduate joiner with a history degree turn into quite an effective data management professional in what was a relatively short period of time. Ultimately, what was achieved within the product data space became something of a blueprint for the rest of the firm. Pandora became seen as the default tool for doing data migration work, integration work, data quality assessments, and other data requirements. So you're probably saying to yourselves now, well, all this, or hopefully, all this sounds great. How can I start? It all sounds very easy. Well, in summary, from the experience, my tips would be to first perhaps start by avoiding thinking that a large program of work is the only way to tackle data quality within a large organization. Try to establish a minimum viable product that allows you to deliver some value to stakeholders relatively quickly in an area that they really care about. Also, try to act in as lean a manner as possible. That is, focusing in on waste, trying to achieve validated learnings, smaller batch sizes, more frequent deliveries, and so on. Finally, there are no magic bullets really in this space. However, if you're able to use the right tools and the right approach and really adopt a philosophy that allows you to work extremely closely with the business stakeholders that ultimately care about the data or should care about the data, then that's extremely beneficial. So now we're going to have Mark do a quick demonstration of the product, so hopefully you can see it for yourself and make your own judgments. Certainly can.
Okay, just literally about sort of 10 minutes of X88 Pandora. I'm going to keep it very, very high level. It is, I could spend at least a couple of hours going through this product. As James said, it's all about getting data in and being able to sort of analyze very, very quickly. There's basically, there's least sort of dependency on the IT, if you like. It's all about getting data in very, very fast. I mean, we can load data in around about 100 million records an hour is the kind of sort of stats that we see. And part of that is loading and generating a whole raft of statistics and doing sort of relationship analysis. But this is the product, and you can see on the left-hand side, this is our Explorer view. But we're going to just delve straight into some data we've obviously already loaded. We can go into here, and we can see that we've got some very generic data, as you can appreciate. Hopefully you can all see that. Maybe a little bit. Is that a bit too high resolution? Do you want me to drop that down? Yes. 2 seconds. Should have done that beforehand. Let's do that down there. Okay. Get a bit slightly better feel for it. So we can see we have a table in. We've got very low volumes in here, 33,500 records, and you can see we've got it's already amber. So what I've already done is I've applied some rules within Pandora. Now you can do multiple things in it. You can transform data, cleanse, enrich, but also obviously you can apply validation rules, data quality rules, whatever they may be. And it's done in a very interactive way within the actual product itself. You can go down and look at the actual data itself. So we can see the actual rows that we have in here, and I could right-click on a particular column, and I can do a multitude of things with that particular data in terms of manipulation. But to apply a rule to it, we can actually, I can right-click on a column or a table, and I can apply rules at each of those potential levels. And really, they're just rules. So it's a validation rule, whether it's completeness, uniqueness, whatever it may be. You can apply those kind of rules on there. So an example is we've actually got some rules already on here, and we can see I've already set up some dimensions, or what we refer to as rule groups, where we've got consistency, uniqueness, validity. Those are set up within our own business glossary, within our in the business glossary itself. So we can actually set those up, and you can see those rules over here. And we can see rule groups. So we've set up accuracy, completeness, consistency, uniqueness, validity, and I can just set up as many different ones as I wish to. And then when we assign a rule within Pandora, you can assign, when you create a rule in Pandora, you can actually assign it the different types of dimension that you wish to. It's up to you how you say, whatever you define those as. So we've got into customer, and we can see we've got different rules here. And I've got three rules in here. One is just simple. Forename must be alphabetical because that's the sort of information we find when we've profiled the data when it's loaded. We need to define valid email formats. We also do a customer ID saying that the customer ID must be unique, so we need uniqueness in there. And we can see that the score is 99.43%. I can right-click on any rule and instantly see a dashboard there that pops up and sort of shows me where the issues are. So we can see how many rows passed, how many rows failed, and we can drill through to the rows from within here. So it's directly linked through to the actual where the data, where the issues lie. So we can go into each of the potential rules, and we can see those rules, and we can add further ones. If we go back into customer, and I can show you how easy it is to add a rule in here, we can go into columns, and if we look at all the information that's happened as part of the load, we can see this is a customer table, and we can see, for instance, that surname has, well, it's got 1,000 nulls in there. So really we want completeness as part of that when we load that data in. So I can right-click on a customer and say validation, add a new rule. And I'm going to put in surname, not null. Click on the function, and then just type in. There's over 400 functions within Pandora allowing you to manipulate the data. Is not null. I can then specify the rule groups. So these are the rule groups that I created earlier. So I can say you can create any rule group you like. So now we can say that it must be unique. Oh, sorry, we want completeness. And then we have to pick up the column, and we're going to just pick up surname. Click on OK. So now it's applied another rule, and we can see there's a question mark attached to that one. We can also go into the columns in here, and we can see, for instance, if we can drill down at the individual columns, and we can maybe look at the values that we've got in there. So we can look at the values that we've got in a potential column, and we can see those are the set of unique values that we have in, for instance, discount code. So we can see they look okay at any one of these. We can highlight some or all of those and drill down to where they exist. What we can see here is we have 4 values that probably clearly shouldn't actually be there. So AXPZ. We could attach a note, document that information, and then attach evidence of that if we need to be able to assign it to somebody to go away and basically deal with. What I could also do is say, okay, let's actually apply a new rule on here, and I want to do a new validation rule, and I'm going to put one and say valid discount code. Give it a description, and I can pick up, and we have within Pandora the concept of domains. Domains at the end of the day are just sets of valid values. And they sit external to Pandora, but you can have domains with aliases, etc. But we're just going to say quick domains match, and I'm going to put validity, and I'm going to pick up column. So I'm going to pick up discount code, and what's a domain? I've got one called valid discount code. Valid discount code literally just sits outside of the actual product and is a set of list of valid discount codes. Click on OK, and we've applied another rule. So to be able to execute that, and we'll just get rid of that, we just right-click, validate that, and it's going to run those extra rules associated with that potential data. And you can see it's now done that, and it's now turned red. So we can drill down into the rules, and we can see we've got the completeness one, and we can look at all the rules here, and we can see instantly amber, red, amber, and green, etc. Which ones pass, which ones fail. Again, we can drill down to those potential ones where the issues lie. But of course, what you want to be able to do is do it at a high level as well. So we can look at the validation, and we can look at the rule set. See them instantly there, and of course what we can also see is the dashboard there as well. So instantly we can see here that we've got 1,400 rows which fails all of our rules. Well, like I say, we can look at them individually or not, but it tells me we've got a pass percentage of 95.78%. You could argue what does that really mean? It just means I've got 4-point-something% of issues of data in there. But what does that actually mean to me as a business? If my business is fine, everything's going okay, and we know we've got some data quality issues, and 95.78% is actually not too bad. That's, we're pretty good. What Pandora allows you to do is put a whole different context on that. We can right-click on something, and we can say, okay, let's put a definition, and let's put what we call a business measure on that. So this puts business meaning into the potential data. And a business measure is usually it's an integer, money, decimal, that sort of stuff. It can actually be a column that is calculated on the fly on the data that you load in. But we can in our simple example here, we've got sales last year. So we've got a bunch of customers with the total sales that they did for last year. So now it's going to take into account that business measure. Click on Save. It's now put a question mark because you've changed that. And it's now going to revalidate that data, but now take into account the business measure of sales last year. We look at that and click on the validation rules. We can see that, and let's have a look at the dashboard. We can see that our percentage has dropped right away down. What does that mean? Well, it means for those 4-point-something percentage. So if we looked at those 4% rows, we may say, well, that's fine. But if those 4% of rows accounted for over 50% of our revenue as a business last year, that puts a whole different context on the meaning and the value of those actual rows or that data quality. It's now got a huge impact to us as a business. We've got data quality problems in our biggest customers and our most important customers. And you want to see where they are, so we drill down to the failed rows. Those are our rows. We look at the business measure, and I can sort descending, and then instantly I can see where I need to prioritize. So by sorting purely on the actual business measure itself, you can see where you need to focus your efforts in terms of correcting the data. So when we've created our rules within Pandora, you can see them there. So we can see the rules, quality rules on a column level, at a table level, at a project level, but also we can go across, as we've seen earlier on, and we can actually go into our rule groups, and we can see them there. So I could look at, for instance, the uniqueness and say, show me all the rules with uniqueness on there. I've only got the one on there, but we can start. So if I'm building dimensions of my data, I can look at that across all my data. So any data I brought into Pandora, if I've got them set up as uniqueness or consistency or accuracy, I can look across all my data from that perspective. So we can start to see the quality of the data from a uniqueness across all my data. And obviously, if we want to, and with Pandora, you can actually continue to load the data in, so we can schedule it to load on a regular basis, whether it's daily, weekly, nightly, however it wants, and it can be date, time, stroke, event based. So essentially, you load the data in, you can profile all the data, you can apply the rules to it, you can build the actual data quality metrics, and then you can run that on a regular basis, and we can set alerting, etc. That's all I wanted to show today. It was really just a quick, high-level 10-minute overview of Pandora, just so you understand what James has been talking about. Right,
Thank you. That's right on time.
Questions? He's down there.